to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft, welcoming you to our live, local, 5 days a week TV, radio, and streaming show looking into all things Michigan. Today we'll be talking to a number of people about a whole host of fun and interesting stuff, as well as important news stories right here in the Great Lakes State. Let's get into today's headlines on our website, civiccentertv.com. On our local news page, our top story comes from the Detroit Free Press's Arpon Lobo, as a poll is showing Governor Whitmer has an early lead over Republican challenger Tudor Dixon in the polls, and that lead is by double digits. Whitmer, currently in this cited poll from Lansing firm Epic MRA, is in the lead with 50% of respondents saying they will vote to re-elect her, and just 39% of those voters polled saying they would vote for Tudor Dixon, the Republican challenger out of Norton Shores. It's not all sunshine in the polls, however, for the governor, as 51% of the respondents also gave her a negative approval rating compared to 47% positive. In other races polled by this firm in Lansing, Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson has a lead over Republican challenger Christina Caramo, 44% to 38%, and Attorney General Dana Nessel has a comfortable lead, but a narrow lead over Republican challenger Matthew DePerno. That difference, 43% for Nessel, 39% for Matthew DePerno. More information on that poll as well as other polls across the state of Michigan at this time. Still very early on, and I think we've learned in the last few elections that the polls are not always as accurate as they've seemed to be in the past, and especially with absentee voters, less people going to the physical polls themselves, where a lot of these exit polls are made and entry polls even are made beforehand. Can't really trust them to be indicative of what's going to go on. Still encourage you to get out and vote this fall in November, regardless of your politics, whoever your candidate is, because you never know. If you're a Republican, Tudor Dixon may actually be in the lead, and we don't know it based on some of these polls. And if you're a Democrat, you get complacent, all of a sudden, maybe your gubernatorial candidate, Governor Whitmer, doesn't get reelected. So always important to have your voice heard. Number one way to do that, if you are eligible, is to vote. Additionally, making headlines today on CivicCenterTV.com on our local news page from Mike Martindale at the Detroit News, the alleged Oxford high school shooter has once again been ordered to remain in the Oakland County Jail. The 16-year-old's next hearing will be in late September following this week's ruling by Judge Kwame Rowe, as no new information was presented to justify moving the suspect out of Oakland County Jail and into a juvenile facility such as Children's Village. The teen's trial, previously scheduled to begin in September, will now begin after the new year, following a granted extension for the defense, who requested more time to review a mass of evidence in order to best make their case in the alleged shooter's defense. Finally, making headlines today on CivicCenterTV.com on our local news page. Also from the team at the Detroit News, there's plenty of MHSAA football action already underway in the state of Michigan that began yesterday, even though it's Friday Night Lights, but that began a little early on Thursday night. Here are some of the scores so far on Thursday in our local area. Walled Lake Western defeated South Lyon by a score of 47-26. Birmingham Seaholm went up against the Bloomfield Hills Blackhawks, my alma mater, technically. 38 points for Birmingham Seaholm, 21 points for Bloomfield Hills in that first game of the year for both of those teams. Clinton Township, Chippewa Valley, one of the powerhouse teams in the state, defeated another strong team in Novi Detroit Catholic Central by a score of 20-16. And then Ike beat Lake Orion Utica Eisenhower 34. The OAA Red Division's Lake Orion in the first game in the second Chris Bell coaching era ends in a loss. Macomb, Dakota at the Zenith Prep Kickoff Classic that kicked off the first game of the three-day event, defeated Bloomfield Hills Brother Rice 21-7. And then Rochester Adams, back in the OAA Red and in the local area, defeated Orchard Lake St. Mary's out of the Catholic League in a rout, 42-14, the final score. And then lastly, right here on Civic Center TV and My Michigan TV, the West Bloomfield Lakers at the Zenith Prep Kickoff Classic had the later game yesterday against Sterling Heights Stevenson. The Lakers, 47 points, and Sterling Heights Stevenson, the Titans, just 7. They scored in the first quarter, and then it was all West Bloomfield from there. West Bloomfield struck first, did not convert on the extra point. Then Sterling Heights Stevenson scored. They did convert on the extra point, had a 7-6 lead, and from there, 41-0 outscored the Lakers outscored the Sterling Heights Stevenson Titans with 2 touchdowns from both Rick Nance, and from Deontay Pippen in the air. Samaj Morgan also had a touchdown for the Lakers and a great performance, 156 yards receiving, which moved him up the record books and nearing Taj Mustafa, near the top of the most receptions in Laker football history. We'll have their next game next week, Friday at home, 7 p.m. kickoff, 6:30 pregame right here on Civic Center TV, on My Michigan TV, on 89.3 Lakes FM, and all that information. You can always watch these games live and find more info about where you can watch and listen to these games on civiccentertv.com/Lakersports. Some more games coming up tonight on Friday and through the weekend. Friday night, Belleville begins their season. The defending champions will go to Novi to play Novi High School. Next week's Laker opponents, Harper Woods, will be playing at Harper Woods Chandler Park. And in Pontiac, our neighbors, Pontiac Notre Dame Prep begins their season at Clinton. Lots of great football still ahead at the prep level. Of course, as we said, stay tuned for our coverage every week on civiccentertv.com/Lakersports and learn more about football all across the state of Michigan, as well as other fall sports that are already underway at MHSAA.com. All those headlines are on our website, civiccentertv.com, on our local news page, as well as those helpful links to accurate information that's up to date on the daily on COVID-19 from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the Oakland County Health Division. We have a great program ahead on this Friday edition of the Megacast. Up next, we'll talk depression and other mental health matters with Carrie Krawiec from the Birmingham Maple Clinic. This is the Megacast.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu.
Fire Prevention Week is just around the corner. Join volunteer, part-time, and on-call firefighters at this year's Fire Open House. Catch up on your fire safety knowledge with live demonstrations and hands-on activities. Chat with local businesses and resources about fire prevention, see some familiar faces, fight future fires, and make some new friends. The West Bloomfield Fire Open House, October 2nd from noon to 3 p.m. at Fire Station 1 on Orchard Lake Road.
Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Let's savor these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Mark your calendars for the 11th Annual Family Fun Night at West Bloomfield High School. Stop by on Friday, September 16th at 5 p.m. for an evening of free, fun activities as we honor our military, police, and fire heroes. Plus, stick around to see Laker football take on Clarkston at 7 p.m. To find out more, scan the QR code on your screen or visit wbsd.org/community/family fun night.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick. The virus will die. It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer. Because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine. To keep safe and strong. Be happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine.
Connect with local leaders, philanthropists, and more. The Greater West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce presents the 2022 Leadership Breakfast. Join the Chamber for a morning of insight with guest speaker Laura Graneman, with the whole event emceed by Fox 2 News anchor Roop Raj. Join your local businesses at the Wabi Country Club September 13th at 8:30 a.m. Order your tickets by September 6th at westbloomfieldchamber.com/breakfast. We'll see you there.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily 1-hour show about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. To learn more about the program by visiting civiccentertv.com/megacast, we will find information on our entire network of stations, including My Michigan TV. Joining us now on the program once again is Carrie Krawiec from the Birmingham Maple Clinic, as this is one of those months of the year that many parents are welcoming their children into the world, and some of those parents then have some lasting after effects after the fact. Kerry, thank you for joining us today.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So as a therapist at this time of the year, knowing that it's a time when so many parents are giving birth to sometimes their first children or another child in their family, it often brings up the issue of postpartum depression for mothers. What are some of the challenges after giving birth that mothers do face in that regard?
Absolutely. I didn't even know that August is the highest birth month of the year. So what an interesting fact. Postpartum depression has gotten more attention over the years. There are biological and hormonal activities at place in the body that certainly play a role to mood changes. And then additionally, when you add sleeplessness, stress, the anxiety of a new baby, especially, any sense of inadequacy or fear that you're not doing the right things or not doing things good enough, is certainly just going to compound a person's experience of depression or anxiety.
And so what are some strategies that you propose to parents, particularly to mothers, in that situation as they're facing some of those hormonal imbalances that may be kind of messing around with them a little bit as they face their new lifestyle with their first child, or a new lifestyle with another child being brought into their family?
Initially, some of the changes, some of the moodiness, some of the baby blues, of course, is so normal. And to remind even your family, I think, people obviously experience a change, and there are people in the family that are very joyful about the new baby, and they may put even additional pressure on the mom. Why aren't you feeling so good? Just to know that there's nothing actually wrong with you. To continue to have conversations with people about how you're doing, making sure you're taking care of yourself and your baby. If in the event that your thoughts or feelings exceed what you would expect to be normal, to also be talking to people about that. If you feel like you need help, if you feel like you're having suicidal thoughts, if you feel like the way you feel in terms of fatigue, emotions, worthlessness is greater than what makes sense, to be sure to be communicating that with your doctor or other professionals, and as family members, to make sure that you're not minimizing that you're being very proactive and responsive if a person is giving you indication that there's something wrong.
We know that the development of a baby in the womb has a massive impact on the hormonal balances of mothers. And certainly, as you've already said, that continues on for some time after childbirth. What about the impact for dads after childbirth too, especially those dads that, for unfortunate circumstances, may end up being single dads, or are in more of a traditional situation? How are they affected in those immediate times after birth as well?
Absolutely. Some of the same things. I mean, the transition, the adjustment, the sleep deprivation, the concern, just the heightened anxiety, the concern about the well-being of their partner and the well-being of their baby can be very taxing on people. There is actually some research that states that some men do experience like a version of postpartum depression and should be monitored for symptoms, especially those dads who maybe first time dads a little bit later in their life, late 30s, early 40s, should be monitored because they are at risk for in some cases, postpartum symptoms.
And let's go back to what you said about the impact of the relationship with your partner. That affects both the father and the mother, the father and the father, the mother and the mother, whatever the situation
Sure.
may be. And especially for those first-time parents, it's a completely new dynamic for them in their life. And as much as you can try to prepare for it, I would imagine until you're actually doing that, until you actually are parenting, you're not really prepared for that. So what suggestions do you have for these couples, or even just for co-parents, as they deal with this new situation in their life, particularly for new parents?
So, you know me, I've said this many times, happiness equals reality minus expectations. So, of course, the more expectations you pile on to another person, yourselves, or each other, the more miserable you're going to be. So, he should know what I want, or she should be paying attention to me too, or this shouldn't be so hard. Anytime you're saying should, you are delving into extra expectations, and you need to be really careful about that. I think to acknowledge if there are things you want or need, to be able to communicate them, to problem solve and maybe predict certain problems and try to come up with solutions ahead of time. But that being said, knowing that troubleshooting will be necessary. If we made the plan and we said, hey, we're dedicated to breastfeeding, and then things happen and it changes and we need to switch gears to formula, to be able to allow each other the opportunity to adjust to that transition, to grieve perhaps the loss of what we thought was going to happen that now is not, but also move on in what's healthiest for your family.
We're joined by Carrie Krawiec from the Birmingham Maple Clinic on the Megacast. You can find more information and get in contact with the whole team at the Birmingham Maple Clinic by visiting birminghammaple.com. birminghammaple.com is their website for all that information. Carrie, going back to kind of a similar topic to postpartum depression, will be those first moments where your kids are really leaving the home. For parents that are for the first time sending their kids off to preschool or even off to kindergarten, and it's the first time that they're really going to be for an extended part of the day away from their parents, what suggestions do you have for them in terms of preparing yourself for that, but also preparing your child to be away from the parents, which have pretty much been, in most traditional situations, their whole world up to that point in their life?
Sure. And certainly for these like pandemic little ones, they've had much more exposure to their parents in this generation than probably any generation before them, within reason. But and I should raise my hand because I got a baby going to kindergarten this year. I think exactly that. For the parents, there is a grief and a loss, to acknowledge that it's okay to feel emotional, that even if you were done out of the baby phase, that it's okay to feel a longing and sentiment and sadness about leaving one phase and moving on to another. I think that every feeling has a place. It's only when one is sort of more intense than everything else that they should really be monitored. But I think we live in a society where we're kind of told to sort of squash those unpleasant emotions, and things should just feel good, that we should sort of have pleasurable or pleasant emotions about everything. But the reality of the situation is that it's always mixed, and it would be mixed for our kids too. Our kids will be both excited and scared about school, as we will be both excited to have them there and concerned. Like, there should always be sort of a duality to our feelings. And anytime you're feeling just one way, that's probably more of a concern, even if that one way is just good. That like anytime you're feeling one way about something, you're probably either denying or ignoring or neglecting some other really pertinent information. It should be a range or a mix, a prism of colors, if you will.
In terms of preparing your kids for that situation, what sort of suggestions do you have of ways that parents can have those discussions with their kids about spending some more time in a different environment, getting to know some other kids their age in a highly social environment, but also kind of respecting the leadership and authority in a new situation of somebody that's outside of their family, which might be a situation these kids are in for the very first time?
Sure, absolutely. Certainly, any kind of exposure, whether it's, driving the bus route or, taking a walk up to the bus stop, kind of imagining what it's going to be like, kind of doing some dress rehearsals of, what drop off and, pickup might be like, exposing them, taking them to the playground or maybe making some play dates with some other peers that will be in the same ages or stages are all ways to kind of buffer that transition and just create some familiarity. So again, like you said, when school starts and there are some unpleasant feelings, there should also be some pleasant ones, and familiarity would be one of those pleasant ones.
We're joined by Carrie Krawiec from the Birmingham Maple Clinic on the Megacast. BirminghamMaple.com is their website for more information about their services and get in contact with them if you are seeking some mental health assistance or some therapy. 248-646-6659 is their phone number, 248-646-6659. You can also send them an email, info@BirminghamMaple.com, info@BirminghamMaple.com, their location on West Big Beaver Road in Troy. Carrie, a couple more minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. Anything else at this time that you and your colleagues are seeing as common issues in your practice, or things that people out in the community should be considering in their daily life or for themselves and their families, especially as we're now heading out of summer into the fall and kind of getting toward that season where it's not so sunny anymore?
Certainly, that's one thing. I mean, one thing to be aware of as the days get shorter and darker. We were observing this morning, it's a little darker in the morning already. As you approach even going into full day school, perhaps, more time in the office or on screens again, now that you're sort of out of the summer swing. You will expect to see increased incidence of seasonal depression, but the symptoms of that don't really kind of volcano over the top until probably more like January and February, but it starts now. It starts as it gets darker. So just making sure you're getting daylight, making sure you're getting time outdoors, making sure, eating healthy and having good like daytime, nighttime, wake and sleep routines will all buffer that for when it does get darker and you're not just sort of hit with a tsunami of darker, more depressed feelings. I think to kind of encapsulate a bunch of the different conversations we had, whether it's bringing home a new baby or moving into school. I mean, I think one thing we see a lot with families, whether it's because of social media and texting, or it's because of just even our smartphones give us so much access to information, whether it's, research or news articles or whatever. There's a lot of giving and receiving of information for one another. So in the case of a new baby, well, you should never co-sleep, or you should absolutely breastfeed, or you should never do this or that, and we're exchanging these informations. And if it's coming in a family, and especially to something like a new mom or a couple of new parents, that information can be so overwhelming, even if it's helpful. And so I think that like a tactic maybe that needs to be worked on amongst families is how to introduce, like, I may have something to offer, but instead of just sharing it, I need to ask permission. Like, would you like to hear a piece of research I read about this? Or do you want to know what was done back in my day? And giving the people the opportunity to say, you know what, no, thank you. We're not taking any more information right now, or we're trying to digest what we can. But, if someone were to come to your door and present something they're selling, they would ring the doorbell first, and then you would say, either yes, we're here, or politely decline. But somehow in our families, we don't give that opportunity, that little piece of, boundary to just offer those exchanges. And I think, and also just keeping in mind too, like the people in some of the generations that are offering it, there's something developmental happening for them. They want to be helpful. They want to be relevant. They want to be, they don't want to be obsolete in this new family with a new baby, or, the new world with new versions of school and whatever else. So they want to be included, and their way of being included may be to interject information that at times doesn't feel appropriate or maybe aggressive. And so really working with each other with some empathy and some boundaries to make those conversations acceptable, but also not hurtful either way.
Carrie, appreciate your time. Appreciate your insight. Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you so much.
BirminghamMaple.com is their website, BirminghamMaple.com. You can call them 248-646-6659 for more information as well, 248-646-6659. We'll take a break on the Megacast. When we come back, student loan forgiveness and some economic troubles overseas. How will that affect us right here in the U.S.? Michael Greiner from Oakland University will discuss that and more up next on the Megacast.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick. The virus will die. It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer. Because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine to keep safe and strong. Be like happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine.
Connect with local leaders, philanthropists, and more. The Greater West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce presents the 2022 Leadership Breakfast. Join the Chamber for a morning of insight with guest speaker Laura Graneman, with the whole event emceed by Fox 2 News anchor Roop Raj. Join your local businesses at the Wabeat Country Club September 13th at 8:30 a.m. Order your tickets by September 6th at westbloomfieldchamber.com/breakfast. We'll see you there.
Let's whoop it up for these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the cheering going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily 1-hour show about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. You can learn more about the program and find us on demand at civiccentertv.com on our Megacast page, civiccentertv.com/Megacast. We'll also find information on our entire network of stations, including our co-flagship My Michigan TV, where you can watch us for free on mymytv.com, mymytv.com, as well as on the free My Michigan TV apps for your smartphones and your smart TVs. Just go to your app store of choice and search My Michigan TV. Download the app for free and take the Megacast home and on the road with you anywhere, anytime with the free My Michigan TV app. Joining us now on the Megacast is Michael Greiner, Assistant Professor of Management in Oakland University's School of Business Administration, joining us once again on today's Megacast. Michael, appreciate you coming on.
It's great to be here, Tyler. We've got a lot to talk about. It's a big week in business news.
Yeah, it certainly has. I think the biggest of all has been the announcement from the Biden administration earlier this week by executive order, sweeping student loan forgiveness upwards of about $10,000 in student loan relief for many Americans, even more for those that are in lower income situations and those that received Pell Grants in order to pay for their university or college education. In terms of whether or not this will go forward as is, based on any legal blowback that may come at the administration or in attempts to push this back, particularly from those on the opposite side of the aisle, when would you say you would expect this to really be in motion after it's been announced? Because it can be announced and that's great news and everything for a lot of people, but it's not really going to affect their pocketbooks for a while.
Yes, you're right about that. Basically, what we see right now is that the administration has extended the pause on student loan payments to the end of the year. My guess is that we'll at least have some guidance by then in terms of what's going to happen. But, you know, there's certainly a chance that this could go all the way to the Supreme Court. One of the big issues is who can challenge it, because, for example, the Supreme Court in prior years had rules that nobody has what's called standing. They don't have enough interest in the issue to be able to sue the government over the CIA budget, for example. So just saying, hey, I'm a taxpayer in the United States doesn't give you enough standing to bring a lawsuit like that. So my guess is that's going to be kind of the biggest challenge that some of the opponents are going to have. But we do know that the Supreme Court has been somewhat hostile to I guess you could say, White House overreach and regulatory overreach. So we'll see what happens with it. But certainly, I think by the end of the year, we should have a pretty good indication of what's going to be happening.
And regardless of if it is the about $10,000 up to $10,000 in loan forgiveness for some Americans, or a little bit more for those on Pell Grants and in lower income situations, regardless if that's the final number or it's something different, there are some concerns out there from the public. There was an interesting poll conducted earlier on this month until about the middle of the month by Momentive, and among the over 5,000 adults that were polled, about 59% of them said they were concerned that student loan forgiveness could make the inflation situation even worse. You're putting all that money back out there, or at the very least, you're not requiring all that money to come back to those that it's owed to, and that could affect other people down the pike. How valid is that as a concern, with all this money not necessarily going back out into the economy from the government, but not coming back in to some of these loan agencies that have provided these funds for these education costs?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's really the big challenge from a policy standpoint that its opponents are bringing up, aside from kind of questions of, is it fair? Is it not fair? Whatever. I mean, that's everybody's going to have their own opinion on that. But from kind of an economic standpoint, I know people are really concerned about inflation, and rightfully so. Although we just got some good news this morning, so here's a little bit of breaking news for you, that actually the Fed's preferred index of inflation, their preferred measure of inflation, actually slowed a little bit last month. So it's not down to where we'd like to see it. It's not down to about the 2% area. But I think that the most recent measure is about 4.4%. Which is down from the prior month at 4.6%. So it shows that inflation is starting to slow a little bit, and that's all good news. And the Federal Reserve, of course, today is meeting in Jackson Hole, and we'll see what they have to say about what they're going to do next about this. My guess is they're going to continue to increase interest rates. People are concerned about inflation, and rightfully so. I mean, this is really something that's been unprecedented in the lives of most people, except for some older folks like me who remember back in the early 1980s and late 1970s when we last saw relatively high inflation. I can see why they're concerned about it. That being said, personally, I do not think this is a big issue. And most of the economists who I respect, who I've read their opinions from, tend to kind of fall on this side of the equation, which is that $300 billion is the amount that's estimated as a cost for this program. And that sounds like a lot of money, and it is. I'm not going to try to downplay it, but you have to remember that's $300 billion, number one, over 10 years, number two, out of a nearly $3 trillion economy in the United States. So in terms of the total impact on the amount of money that's flowing in and out around our economy, it's relatively small. What's more is, even if we accept the way that they've accounted for this, you have to remember that government kind of has its own way of accounting things. So the actual real impact on the budget could actually be quite a bit lower than $300 billion. And the final point on that is also, we have to remember that with the Inflation Reduction Act, that included a $300 billion down payment on the deficit. So basically what we did is we took the funds that are being charged to higher income individuals and new taxes under the Inflation Reduction Act, and we're using that to help finance the debt relief that's going to middle class families for the most part. So my guess is that the impact's going to be pretty small. And then the last thing I think is important to note too is we've been on this pause of loan payments for quite some time now. I think it's a couple of years now, actually, that it's been paused. And as a result of that, people haven't been making those payments. So basically we're saying, okay, now people don't need to pay back loans that they haven't been paying back anyway. So it's kind of like, it's not going to mean more money in their pockets. It's not going to mean some kind of impact that people are going to be able to go out and start spending more money left and right. And we have to, by comparison, the original COVID Relief Act that was passed, that many people have pointed to as being part of the problem, included $1.9 trillion in spending in 1 year. And again, you have to contrast that with $300 billion over 10 years. And when you look at it, you can kind of see they really are apples and oranges.
Yeah, a lot of the conversation you're seeing on this matter, particularly for those that are in favor of even greater student loan forgiveness against those that are claiming that this to be an unfair measure by the White House by executive order, is that, well, all that money went out into the economy for PPP loans, and a lot of that, if not a vast majority of that, had been forgiven by the government. And those were loans from the government. This is simply just a reduction of what's owed on these loans. And also in this article, an article I'm referencing from CNBC, the poll from Momentive also indicated that a lot of these borrowers would say, regardless of how much relief they might get, their spending habits are not very likely to change. And I think you made a great point too, Michael, by saying with the pause on the student loan repayments during the pandemic, which has now lasted a couple of years, people haven't been paying these bills anyway. They haven't been spending more based on that anyway. And even if this relief goes through, it's not so much that for a vast majority of these debtors, over 44 million Americans owing about $1.7 trillion in federal student loan debt at this moment in time, according to this article from CNBC, they're simply going to be paying a little bit less per month on their student loan repayments in most cases. In some, it may pay it off, but in most cases, it's going to be giving them a little bit more money in their pocket than they would have had pre-pandemic per month, given their student loan payments. But it's going to still have an impact when those come back into impacting their pocketbook every month.
Right. Right. And if I could just make one point, and I kind of hate to step into the whole fairness debate here, but I think this is relevant here. I did see one study that pointed out the fact that the benefits of this are targeted squarely at the middle class. In fact, the majority of the benefits from this program, when you look at the raw dollars, are going to go right to that middle fifth, of the income in the United States. So I think that that's encouraging because of the fact that that's the group that sometimes feels most squeezed. A lot of the time they feel that, we earn too much money to get some of the benefits that say people who are in the lower income area get, but yet we don't make enough money where we're comfortable and we can take advantage of some of the tax shelters and some of the investments and that type of thing that the very wealthy get. So I think that it's actually interesting to note that this is a benefit that really is going to go to a group that, generally speaking, has not gotten a lot of benefit from the government in the past.
We're joined by Michael Greiner, assistant professor at the Oakland University School of Management within their School of Business Administration, joining us on the Megacast, oakland.edu, for more information on that. Lastly, Michael, we're a little bit over time, but I want to talk about this with you because it certainly will have a global economic impact. China's economy has seen a little bit of a struggle in recent months following a surge of COVID-19 in late May. What is their economic situation looking like? And if it continues to have a little bit of a struggle as it's had as a result of that resurgence of COVID a couple months ago, how could that impact the wider world economy, especially here in the U.S. in the future?
Yeah, well, China's actually got some very fundamental problems here. And I think this is one of perhaps the most underreported stories going on right now in the United States. So I'm really glad you brought this up. China basically right now is going through the kind of crisis that we went through here in the United States in 2008 and 2009, except on steroids. Basically, what's happened is about a year ago, they had their largest property developer, a company called Evergrande, which actually was the largest private issuer of debt in the entire world. And that company ended up defaulting on their debt, essentially going bankrupt. And as a result of that, since then, the Chinese real estate economy has been in free fall. And that's not no minor thing, because the Chinese real estate economy at this point represents about 30% of their gross domestic product. Now, that we know about the COVID issues, obviously, and the shutdowns and how they continue to do that. And that's caused real problems with the supply chains, and has resulted in a lot of businesses actually moving their production facilities out of China to other countries. And in fact, I saw one recent report that showed that the United States has had more businesses returning jobs, manufacturing jobs to the United States than at any time in the last 20 years. I think that that's really telling, given the fact that there has been these issues with the COVID crisis that have shown the limitations of kind of relying upon a globalized supply chain. And there are advantages to having your supply chain right here in the United States. And so China has these two big issues, but beyond that, they have some very fundamental issues that are really kind of driving these economic problems that they have. Number one, they're dealing with a huge drought. We think that we've got a drought here in the Western United States. Literally, in China, they spent billions building one of the largest public development projects in the world, in what's called the Three Gorges Dam. Well, the water supply to that dam has almost completely dried up. So they're dealing with problems with drinking water. They're dealing with problems with generating electricity, and those things aren't talked about. And at the same time, China just continues to build more and more coal plants, which only exacerbates the problem for them and makes the pollution and the drought situation there even worse for them. So they're dealing with some fundamental environmental issues there. And then what's more is they're dealing with some very, very problematic demographic issues. One of the big things that you always worry about with a developed country is, at a certain point here, women start having fewer children on average. And what that means is you have fewer younger people. As a result of that, those young people tend to be the ones who bring dynamism into the economy, have new ideas, have the energy, and they're not kind of retired, old fogies like I'm getting to be, who are just sitting around collecting Social Security, and nothing against retired people. I'm going to be one soon, but the point is that the young people are the ones who bring the energy to the economy. Well, as it turns out, China had a one-child policy for a number of years, where they essentially were stopping Chinese families from having more children. Well, the result of that has been, number one, there's a huge imbalance in terms of men versus women in China. That there are, I think, as much as 20% of young men in China are unable to find women in China to date and to marry. So there's this imbalance there, which is creating a real family crisis there. And what's more is, because of this restriction on the birth rate, now you have really an older population in China, that this smaller and smaller group of working people are going to have to continue to support going forward. Now, China has made some efforts to try to reverse that by trying to encourage families to have more children. But, at a certain point here, these things become ingrained in families. And in fact, I saw some statistics that indicate that China has actually reached its peak of population now already, and that they've actually already started declining their population. And so the result is that the estimate is, by the year 2100, China and the United States will have the same population. Now, the reason that's relevant here is because, from an economic standpoint, you have to remember gross domestic product, the total amount of goods and economic activity that we produced, is based on the amount of activity that each person is able to produce. We call it gross domestic product per capita. And so part of the reason China has been growing so fast, they have so many people. Their GDP per capita is still much smaller than the United States, but since they have so many people, it's been growing very quickly. Well, if they start declining in their population, they're going to have trouble sustaining that level of growth. So I think in the long run, China has some very, very serious issues it's going to have to be dealing with.
And those issues in China are going to have impacts all across the global economy. Michael, thank you very much for joining us today.
Happy to be here, Tyler. Thanks for having me.
Oakland.edu to keep up to date on everything happening at Oakland University, including in their School of Business Administration, where Michael teaches as well. We'll take a break on the Megacast. When we come back, we'll talk to one of the great nonprofits making an impact in your community. This is the Megacast.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu.
Fire Prevention Week is just around the corner. Join volunteer, part-time, and on-call firefighters at this year's Fire Open House. Catch up on your fire safety knowledge with live demonstrations and hands-on activities. Chat with local businesses and resources about fire prevention, see some familiar faces, fight future fires, and make some new friends. The West Bloomfield Fire Open House, October 2nd from noon to 3 p.m. at Fire Station 1 on Orchard Lake Road.
I'm Tyler Kieft, welcoming you back to our live daily 1-hour TV, radio, and streaming show about all things Michigan. Learn more on civiccentertv.com/megacast. Joining us now is Michelle Bolofer, the program director at InsideOut Literary Arts on the Megacast. Michelle, thanks for being with us today.
Yes, thanks so much for having me.
Appreciate having you on. Apologize, we're a little bit behind time, but let's dive right into it. Tell us about InsideOut Literary Arts, the history of the organization, and who you provide services to in our local area.
Yeah, absolutely. So InsideOut Literary Arts was founded in 1995 by Dr. Terry Blackhawk, and really with this recognition that poetry and creative writing has this power to transform youth, transform their lives, the way they see themselves, and the way that they can operate in the world. And so we are a youth-serving organization. We serve students from elementary through high school with our in-school programming, our after-school programming, and our community programming.
And so what are some of the programs that you do offer to serve this mission and to provide this kind of dedicated service to kids in the local area?
Yeah, so we have our in-school program that partners with classrooms in the Detroit and Metro Detroit area to have a real professional working artist come in with the classroom and for a series of weeks work with students to improve, creative writing, help them explore themselves and build community and so forth, and ending with a publication that each student is published in. For our after-school programming, we do high school only, so teens 13 to 19. We do lots of activities with them, again, around publication as well as performance. They also have the opportunity to try out for our annual youth performance troupe, in which they get additional coaching and professional mentorship and opportunities to really bring their voice to new stages. And then we also do community work. So we've got lots of activities that we do in the Metro Detroit area, partnering with other organizations and really helping raise the profile of what creative writing can do for the person and can do for our community.
InsideOutDetroit.org for more information. InsideOutDetroit.org. And Michelle, what kind of impact do these programs have on these kids that are participating, both for their education, but also just their overall development in this environment?
Yeah, so we always say that, literary arts is the vehicle, but what the ultimate goal is here is for us to help build up students and build up their confidence. And that's what we find, is that this is the entry for them to learn more about themselves, learn how to express themselves or feel more empowered to express themselves. And so we really do see that that community that's built, and they feel more confident in themselves. They've gone on to do some really wonderful things. Our alumni have been involved in so many things. But we also just see this power of youth voice that we are able to learn from as an organization and that they are able to carry out into the world. And so I think that's the biggest impact that we find these students are really empowered to go out and create in the world.
It's great because these programs allow these kids to have that creative outlet. And one of the most interesting points that I heard on creativity was from a college professor of mine, Carl Good, was his name. And he always would talk about how kids at some point in their life, they start to be taught to kind of tamper their creative mind and not really look out in the world so fancifully and look more through the lens of reality. And that's great to some extent. but to another extent, it really does hold them back from being their true selves and really tapping into the magic behind that creativity. What's great about this program too is that you help some of your students when they create this work to then go ahead and publish that work and take it to the next level. Can you tell us about that and how that ultimately impacts how creativity plays a role in their life for years to come?
Yeah, so it's really great that you mentioned creativity because I think that's one of the things that we do see, tamped down, and we try to bring back that fun, playful aspect of creativity. Let folks take risks on papers instead of worrying about, how it's going to be evaluated, helping them, really lean into what they find most interesting, and then going from what motivates them and interests them and inspires them, putting it on a page and being able to work with our writers to help revise, to help understand, because we, of course, with all of the confidence building, all that, we actually do work on literary skills and writing skills, and so we help them revise, make informed decisions about what they want to do with their work and with their words, and recognize that they have the ultimate control around that. And then we do take all of these poems and publish them into school anthologies for each of the schools that we work with. And for our after school program, we do have an after school anthology. And being able to hold a book in your hands with your own name in it and recognize that you have contributed, you are now an author. And not only that, we sometimes use those books to bring to our next classrooms and use those as the model text for authors. They realize they are published artists now at this point, and there's really a change in the way that they look at themselves and treat themselves as professionals.
Especially seeing that these are creations by people that are your peers or were in your position in years past. And it really informs that somebody in my position, in my community, can do this. And that means I can do it too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it really sets that example. That's one of the things that bringing in real local contemporary artists. So artists, poets aren't just somebody in a book that, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, that have no connection. These are real people who largely come from similar neighborhoods as our students, similar demographics, and we are really showing them that, yes, you can be a real live working artist, and this actually matters in our community. And I think seeing that and having that connection one-to-one with our writers is really transformative for students.
We're joined by Michelle Bolofer, the program director of Inside Out Literary Arts, joining us on the Megacast. InsideOutDetroit.org is their website, InsideOutDetroit.org, for more information, how you can get involved and how you can support this organization, the great work that they do for kids in Detroit. You've also have an upcoming event on September 8th. That's another way people can support your organization. Tell us about that event and how people can participate.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's the evening of September 8th at Valade Park, downtown Detroit. It's called If the River Could Sing, and we will have poetry performances, music performances, writing and printing, and other interactive activities for the whole family. Please come out and join us. It's going to be a great time.
More information, InsideOutDetroit.org. That's InsideOutDetroit.org. For more information, you navigate over to the news and events page, and you'll be able to find all the information that you need. If the River Could Sing, a celebration of writing and river with Inside Out Detroit. It's going to be at 2670 Atwater Street in Detroit, September 8th, 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Again, more information, InsideOutDetroit.org. In terms of other ways that people can help your organization, other volunteer opportunities, or what are some of the needs of your organization at this moment in time that the community inside and outside of Detroit can support you with?
Yeah, absolutely. So one, I would say just, check out our website and get involved. So if you have youth that who might be interested, absolutely direct them to our Citywide Poets registration. Come out and join our events. We have a Facebook page, we have Instagram, so we always publicize our events. They are almost always open to the public without, pre-registration. And if some are, we encourage you to go ahead and pre-register. Join our newsletter to stay tapped into what it is we're doing and volunteer opportunities that come up. And of course, donate if you are interested. We would love to have you.
And this is a great organization. It's won a lot of awards. Also, the White House presented Inside Out the highest honor in youth arts programming, the National Arts and Humanities Youth Program Award in 2009 during the Obama administration. And Michelle Obama also presented Dr. Terry Blackhawk with the Coming Up Taller Award for Excellence in After-School Programming just a couple of years before that in 2007. More information, of course, on this organization, how you can get involved, InsideOutDetroit.org. Michelle, anything else for us about your organization before we let you go today?
We just really want to share that we absolutely love the community support and that we are so grateful. And to the extent you can get creative and get involved in writing, we encourage you to, and we hope you join us at our event on September 8th.
Never stop writing is what I've been told time and time again by people in all areas of life. And we certainly encourage that from those participating in Inside Out Detroit. Michelle, thank you so much.
Thank you.
InsideOutDetroit.org is their website. Again, that event, September 8th. You can find more information on the website, InsideOutDetroit.org. That is going to do it for this week's editions of the Megacast. Of course, you can catch us live Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. until 11 a.m. on Civic Center TV and a number of other TV, radio, and streaming outlets all throughout the Great Lakes state on civiccentertv.com/megacast. You'll find all the links to those stations. You can check out their other regular programming and find us on demand, full episodes and each individual interview. If you're not able to spend 5 hours a week with us, or you're only interested in certain topics, you want to learn more about great organizations like Inside Out Detroit in our local area, civiccentertv.com/megacast is the place to do that. You can also find more information across the state of Michigan on our local news page at civiccentertv.com. And of course, we highly encourage you to watch us live each and every day, Monday through Friday, live 10 a.m. until 11 a.m. Big thank you to our crew, Jared Clark, Calvin Brown, and our producer, the king of television, Larry Nyland, for making this all possible. That's it for us this week. We'll return on Monday with new editions of the Megacast.